This conference will now be recorded.
As you just heard, this webinar is going to be recorded today, and we'll post it online for anyone that misses it or if you need to rewatch anything. But hopefully today we're going to have a good chance to answer some questions as well as go through a few things about how to sort of boost your church website. Those of you that have heard me speak before know that I've given a number of workshops and talks on sort of the basic level of church websites, and it's one of the areas that I've seen a great deal of need for. Both James and I in our work, we help a lot of congregations with their website, and we are hoping that today's webinar is going to help sort of be like level 2, where we can go in a little bit more deeply. Some of you will be on the PCC web network, and if so, we can sort of answer some more specific questions, but if you're not, don't worry, we hopefully can still answer some of the questions that you might have. James, do you want to say a quick hi and a bit about your work?
Hi everyone, I'm James Lawrenson. I'm the web coordinator at the Presbyterian Church in Canada, and work with all the websites at the office, supporting them, and particularly the PCC web hosting. And so whenever you are stuck and have trouble and look for a tech assistance, that would be me.
Yeah. Probably most people on this call know you. All right, so we're just going to get right into it today. I've just got a short presentation, and then we're going to start looking at some stuff online. So we'll get started here now. All righty. So as I was saying about in my work that I've done with churches and the sort of support that we provided for congregations, is that there is still a great deal of need with regard to church websites, that many church websites are just not being the sites that they can be. So we see a lot of different problems with church websites. Sometimes it's as basic as missing crucial information, such as the location and the time of worship. I can't tell you how many times I've seen that, as well as failing to just reach, and not just reach, but connect with people that are interested in your church but maybe haven't quite come yet. And that is a crucial audience for you to try to reach out to. There's websites that are geared specifically to members, and that's fine and that serves a purpose, but I really try to encourage people to gear your website to potential new visitors, because they're the ones that are maybe thinking about joining you but haven't yet, whereas church members are already a part of your network and already part of your team. So what about those other people, the many people in your community that are not yet coming to your church that maybe could be and would like to? Often church websites have a lot of acronyms. We're Presbyterians, we seem to like a lot of acronyms, but those acronyms and church lingos can sometimes be barriers to people connecting with you and taking part in your services. Some church websites are lacking the attention and love that other communication tools receive. I know churches that spend a great deal of time on their church newsletter or on their church bulletin every week, putting a lot of love into those bulletins, but the website doesn't seem to get the same amount of love always. And it really is important, and hopefully all of you already know that. But you know that the website is an important tool, and that's why you're taking part today, because you want to learn how to make your website just even a little bit better. And we're going to get into that, but really understanding that giving that attention to your website is going to pay off, I truly believe, and it is going to serve you very well. So websites aren't just about the content you put on them. The whole thing, the look, the feel, the ease of finding information, all of that is saying something about your congregation. If you think about how you yourself use the internet, when we before I do any shopping, or if I'm checking out a new place, I always look them up online, absolutely every time. First, I want to know what to expect. I want to know how to find them physically, so I'm not driving around on the road looking. There's a lot of different reasons. And when we're surfing online and when we're looking at people or places, we're forming opinions very, very quickly. In other workshops I've given, some of the stats say it's like within 2 seconds we formed an opinion about people or places based off of their website or their online presence. So your congregation is doing that for others. So you need to ask yourself, what is your website saying? One of the most common things that I see is finding an events calendar that looks like this. It's empty. Now, right now, given the state of the world, this is totally understandable, and we are in exceptional times. So don't worry about it if today your church events calendar looks like that, because it probably should, otherwise it's out of date. But on normal times, when a church events calendar looks like that, it is saying something about your congregation, and probably not the message that you want it to say. An easy solution to this is to take your events calendar down. Don't use tools that aren't serving you. These tools, these websites, and all the different widgets and apps and things that we can do to them, they're there to serve you. So if it's not serving you, don't use it. There's other ways of sharing information. If it's a reoccurring event, you don't need to put it in a calendar format just because you think that's what a lot of other congregations are doing. Make sure it's working for you before you use it, and take it down if it's not. So as I mentioned, PCC Web is the free website hosting that we do thanks to support from Presbyterian Sharing. And we are currently hosting 324 sites through PCC Web. Some of you will be on it, I'm sure. The thing about PCC Web is a very simple platform. I mean, we're hosting so many, there's a lot of different security issues and all kinds of compatibility issues that we need to deal with. So we don't have the level of sophistication that other websites may have. But this is just sort of like, think of it as like a kind of a starter kit. If you have you know, like a basic site that you want to get up and going and you want to do it quickly and easily, come to PCC Web, we can help you. If you're looking for something more advanced, you might need to look elsewhere, and we can certainly help you with that as well. But in the meantime, PCC Web is a pretty good, effective platform and very reliable. So if you're looking for inspiration and ideas, because we already have these different Presbyterian congregations and groups on PCC Web, you're going to find today, hopefully, that it's a good source of inspiration and ideas for you. And we're going to get into that into just a minute here, because I'm going to show you the Your Church template. This is a template that the communications office built to try to help congregations that are looking for what to populate their site with. When I do a lot of work with congregations on a one-to-one level in particular, sometimes there's a lot of questions about, well, we don't know, like, what type of page should we have? You know, we have a landing page and we have a contact page. Do we need anything else? The short answer is no, you don't. If you say what you need to say in, you know, just a couple pages, that's fine. But if you're looking for more, the Your Church template might be something that can help you out. If we have suggestions and tips to help you populate your website. And it's important to remember that your site should be tailored to your own congregation's needs and values. So while you're going to see examples of what other congregations are doing, make sure if you want to adapt it, make sure that it applies for your own context. And always consider the visitor. What do you most want to say to visitors to your church? That's what a website really can be. It's your chance to connect with people that are potential visitors before they ever set foot in your church. So what would you most like to say? This is your shot, this is your opportunity. In web development, I can't stress enough how important it is to get feedback. How is your site being used? Who's using it? How can you improve it? In a little bit, James is going to talk about analytics and things that we can use that way to help with that. But even just asking some people to use your site and getting their feedback on that, go for it. Make sure you get it. Find out what people think and how you can make it better. Okay, so I'm going to now show you the Your Church template, and we're going to walk through it. Like I said, there's going to be lots of chances at the end for questions, so we'll go through it fairly quickly, and then we'll open it up so that you can all unmute yourselves and ask questions away. We can even pull up people's websites if you want to, whatever you feel is most helpful. Let me just pull it up here. Okay. All right, this is the landing page for PCC Web. If you're looking for more information about it, it's just pccweb.ca. It's got a bit of information and the sign up form if you're looking for it. The other thing on this site that's helpful is, like I said, the full list of congregations that are on, and we also have presbyteries and camps and a few different groups like that that are on the PCC Web network. And this can be very helpful to you if you're looking for ideas and inspiration. So I'll just put that there so you can see it. And then this is the Your Church template. So we'll go through it quickly. As I mentioned, let's just see here. Okay, so the way this site has been set up is that there's examples from Presbyterian congregations already, and then there's some sample pages that you're more than welcome to copy and paste. Hopefully it's more just a little bit of inspiration, and then you can make yours even better because this is pretty simple stuff. But as you'll see, this site, what we recommend is that obviously your name across the top, and for your little tagline there, to say where you are. So, and kind of who you are. So like a joyful community of Christian worshipers in your town, in your province. Sometimes if you just say St. Andrew's Presbyterian Church, we have a lot of St. Andrew's Presbyterian churches in the country, and people may not know, do I have the right one? And they don't want to scroll around all through your site looking for what town you're in to make sure that they're on the right site. The welcome page is arguably the most important page on your whole site. Honestly, if you had nothing else but a really strong welcome page, I would say job well done. The welcome page is your chance, because it's likely to be the page that people most land on, it's your chance to really put that best foot forward. And while I have listed here some examples of things that you should include, such as your name, your location, service time, photos, a welcome message, and contact information, some churches have really kicked it up a little and really, really welcomed people. And at the bottom of each page on this site, you'll see that there are links to Presbyterian churches within Canada that are doing, doing some really nice things. And we've sort of focused on a few of them. They're not necessarily perfect and they may not work for you, but it's just there as an idea. One that always really, I really love is St. Andrew's Presbyterian Church in Stittsville. They have a welcome message that is very long, and I'm usually quite against lengthy welcome messages, but this one is quite exceptional. As you can see on the screen, it's funny. It includes absolutely everyone in the world that they're welcoming, and it really says something about the congregation. Like I dare you to read that and not feel that you'd be welcome at this congregation. And I think that's just a great example of a welcome message that they sort of kicked it up a little. I'll scroll down a little, and you can see it's really nice welcome message. All right, so there's other examples there too, just ones that we've seen that are sort of in their own way are doing nice welcome messages. And then what we've done on this site is to show you some of the things that you can do on PCC Web if you happen to be using it. And one of them is the sidebar, and this sidebar on the left here goes throughout the site so that the location, the worship time, the office hours, this is something that carries throughout the whole site. And as I'm sure many of you know, these types of things are very customizable. You don't like it on the left, you can put the sidebar onto the right, you can move information into the footer, rejig things a little. I kind of forgot to mention the image here that's used. This is St. Mary's Presbyterian Church in St. Mary's, Ontario, and they have a beautiful church, but it is really important to try whenever possible to use an actual picture of your church. It just helps people visualize it. And I always give major bonus points if you can happen to find a picture of your church where the front doors are open. Just to add that little extra into welcoming and inviting people in. I didn't have one of those of St. Mary's. Okay, I'll just let you see this full section here. Some of these things we'll get into as we go through the site, and but things like that you may have noticed is like the social posts, the Facebook and Twitter posts, links are on there in the sidebar so that it's constantly throughout the site. Okay. The next page is your first visit page. Not everybody uses a page like this. Not everyone feels it's necessary. But I've seen a lot of really nice ones, and I do think it is nice, like I say, for communicating to those new visitors, the potential visitors. And there's lots and lots of different ways to do this. And again, you can add your own local little spin on it and your little pizzazz where you'd like to. But there are some basic questions that are very helpful. And having through my time at the Presbyterian Church in Canada National Office, I've spoken at a lot of different congregations. I think the last time I counted, I was almost at like 180 different congregations that I'd spoken at in the years that I've been there. And some of this information is just selfishly stuff that I wish churches had on their website. Even simple things like what the dress code is like. I've been to churches where in one time at a church, I showed up and I was quite formally dressed and expecting a fairly formal service. And the clerk of session greeted me in like a tank top and flip flops. Like I felt a little out of place, and I was like, oh, geez, I wish I could have worn my flip flops. You know, I wish I could have known in advance that it was a much more casual environment. I would have been more comfortable. These are little things that can make a big difference. So addressing things like dress code, the style of worship, the length of the worship. Very rarely do we actually say worship is an hour. But for somebody new, they may not know that. For all they know, it could go on for 3 hours, it could go on all day. And then also things like coffee time, like mentioning like you're welcome to join us. Like new people may not know that they're invited to go to the coffee time. They may not know that they have to go through a different door to get to the coffee time. Things like parking, accessibility. There's a lot of different things that you can put in here, and there's different ways of doing it. There's the sort of like text-based where it's like in a paragraph format, and that's fine. But as we all know, reading online, a lot of people read point form, so point form is totally fine. The other way is like a question and answer, like an FAQ version, and where you put common questions people might have, like what should I wear? Is there parking? And answering it. So you know, you choose whichever way you like best. But these types of pages can be very helpful. And again, there's some examples at the bottom of some PCC web churches that are currently doing this, and I think they're doing them quite well. We keep adding to this stuff all the time, so if you come back to this site and it's not exactly the same, it's just we're constantly trying to update it with new things that we come across. Okay, so who we are. You know, this is a section where you're going to definitely want to, you know, meet with your session, get your minister and a variety of people to sort of sit and think about which pages you'd like to highlight. You don't have to have a lot here. And the good news is there's lots of already content existing that you can tap into. For example, the What We Believe. On the Presbyterian Church in Canada National Office website, there's a lot of information about what it means to be a Presbyterian in Canada. And you are welcome to copy and paste that into your own site, adapt it how you like best, but it is already there if you're interested in putting something like that up. And I think that can be very helpful, again, to new people that are maybe don't know some of the ins and outs of what it means to be a Presbyterian and what Presbyterians specifically believe. The church staff website, or, you know, there's lots of different ways to name it, leadership team, you know, whatever. There's lots of different ways, but I think it's very helpful to put in actual photos of people. Again, it just kind of adds to that friendliness factor and making people feel comfortable. It's like, oh, hey, I saw that person's picture. That's the minister, or that's the music director, or that's the children and youth leader. Especially with youth leadership, that it can be very, very helpful. People are going to relax a lot more seeing the bio of the people that are taking care of their children during nursery or Sunday school. How our church is governed is a page that I have seen some people use on their sites as well. And again, there are things on the Presbyterian Church in Canada National Office that can be helpful. One of the things that in my job, I do the Presbyterian Connection newspaper, and we get the questions, the sort of just wondering section at the back, and people asking questions. And I see an awful lot, like, what is an elder? Like, what does it actually mean? They kind of know what the position is, but where did that come from? What does it mean? You know, we have that kind of information on the National Office website that you're welcome to tap into if you think that would be helpful to people. And our history. So some congregations are really strong into their history and they've got a lot of content on there. this is a good section to use if you feel that it's a strong part of your past, like that strength is in your past. And you know, you can, how your church has grown and changed over time, leadership in the past, you know, having a separate your history page can be very helpful, but again, only if you think that serves you. The worship page is a very important page because, like I said, newcomers aren't necessarily going to know how what your worship service is like, and lots of churches do it differently. Do you have a band? Is it very traditional, formal hymn music? And even things like, I think I'm a big believer in explaining some of the things in the bulletin. Like, I've been to churches where there's bold print and that means people speak together, but it's maybe not been clarified in the bulletin. You know, you might want to highlight something like that here. Or there's times where we all stand as a congregation, because you can imagine a visitor sitting there and all of a sudden everybody stands up and they're like, oh my goodness, what am I supposed to do? Do I stand up now too? You know, again, these are just making people feel comfortable, making them feel like they know what to expect and what the worship service is going to be like. I really like when people put in information about their music program. You know, the length of the sermon can be helpful. What happens with the children during worship? There's lots of different things you can put in there. And again, try to get in that unique flair of like what your particular congregation is like. If you're very casual and informal, make sure that your text is written that way. Again, there's some examples at the bottom. I'm always looking to add more in there as I come across some really strong ones or some really interesting ones. I do recommend having a page for sermons, especially nowadays that we're all trying to live stream or post the sermons or get that up there. That's really important right now. The PCC web themes, they do support like a sermon manager. And this is just an example of just one. Obviously, I don't have like a actual sermon to put on here, but it's, you know, just a little helpful way that people, it's really good for people if they've missed sermons and they want to get caught up, or newcomers want to get a flair for what it's like. They might listen to that and sort of say, oh yeah, that's really interesting. I find that really interesting. Try to keep, if you're going to do just the sermons, try to keep it shorter, on the shorter side. On web, when we view stuff online, you know, people's attention spans aren't quite as long as if you're actually sitting there in the service. So whether you're deciding to, like, say if you're live streaming or if you're podcasting or whatever you're doing, try to edit out the non-essential stuff as much as you can if you're able to do that. Okay. Mission and ministry is another page that I really think a lot of love should be put into, because this shows your church in action. This is showing what you're doing in the community, and it speaks to your values and beliefs as well. So I've actually put an example up here from St. David's Presbyterian Church, and this is just where they decided on their website to just have links. But a page like this where you see all these different initiatives listed out, while you're not necessarily getting a lot of information about what they are, and I definitely recommend that, you know, even one sentence might be helpful, it does give the impression that there's a lot going on at the church. So you may not have this super dynamic events calendar, but when you've got a big mission and ministries page that's really got a lot of content and a lot of different things going on, that's sending the message that your church is quite dynamic and there's a lot to do. I'm still working on fleshing out this page a little bit more with some more examples, so I'll be adding to that over the coming days. And the children and youth page, this is really important, especially if you want to showcase your children's program. As a mom myself, any church that I go to, I'm definitely looking at their children and youth program online before I go to a congregation. So it's, you know, you really want to give confidence in your program, and, you know, if you don't have a lot of kids, like, be honest about that, but certainly be welcoming and say that, you know, you have a nursery or you don't, or just be clear about what you have or don't have, so that parents aren't wondering and people don't know what to do. This is your chance to give people that information about what your program is like. I'll just scroll down here a little bit. Again, this is another example of from McNabb Presbyterian Church in Hamilton. And, you know, the first sentence on their page is, "We are a child-friendly church." That's a nice way to start it off. And it's really nice language and very welcoming. And there's a few more examples at the bottom too. Okay, the give section. I recognize that right now this is maybe changing for people, as many of you are probably getting set up with online giving to deal with the church closures. But we do have, again, information on the Presbyterian Church in Canada National Office website that can help with this. There's a lot about planned giving in particular, legacy giving. We have a very extensive planned giving section and an extensive stewardship section. Here are some information for you that you can use. Again, you can adapt this as you want. These links are real to the Presbyterian Church in Canada site that will help you, and adapt it as you need. But these are our different ways that people can do planned gifts. You can copy and paste. And here are some examples of some churches that have, this is sort of the regular and planned giving section. And then the other way people can give to your congregation that I really feel is a great add-on to your site is the volunteer side, because a lot of people want to get involved and they maybe don't know how, and they maybe don't want to just go up and ask us, somebody is like, what can I do? It's nice if you already list the opportunities that are there. This is from St. Mary's Presbyterian Church. They set this up just before they launched their new site, and I thought this was really helpful because it's broken down by categories, like the different areas, like worship, music, hands-on or artistic people, hospitality people like greeters, the fundraising side, technology, if you want to help out on the church website, all these different areas that people can volunteer in. That's I think that's really helpful and kind of hopefully encourages people to take part. All right, and then we have the contact page, and this contact page on this template site is really just to the communications national office staff, myself and James included at the top there, and sort of showing how you can use a plugin with the map feature and also the contact form. If you would like to set that up on a PCC website, you can certainly do that as well. So before we get into the questions, I was hoping that I can toss this over to James for a moment, who's going to talk a little bit about a few things from his end, including things that you might be curious about, like Google Analytics and maybe how to get it set up on that site, and different things. James has a lot of different of the more tech side that he can speak to you about. So let me just toss it over to you, James. Alrighty. You can share your screen if there's something you want to show.
All right. So a good place to start is the dashboard. So when you've signed into your PCC website, the first thing you will see is your dashboard. It has a lot of basic information showing you, what theme you're currently running, what version of WordPress it is. You can pick and choose different, let me drink something here, different things that you want to see on that screen by going up here to the screen options, and you can click on or off things you want to or don't want to see to tidy up your dashboard. One thing to do if you are new to WordPress, under the dashboard link on the left-hand side for the admin menu, we have a link for video tutorials. It's a great way to start going through to see what you're supposed to do and how to do it. Just let it load here, and there's all the different sections that are related to the dashboard, posts, pages, appearance, so on and so forth. And you just click any one of these, and it sort of launches the video for you. Everything else that you need to do with regards to editing your website is down the side. Creating new posts if you're doing posts, events for your calendar, new pictures and documents for media, creating a new page, adding sermons, making a contact form, putting a table on your website, choosing different themes, all kinds of great things and tools you can use. Actually, let me just go back here to dashboard. So Barbara mentioned about Google Analytics. We do have Google Analytics on the PCC web. I recently changed the plugin for that because the old one was not working, and I reverted back to Monster Insights, which is what we had before. But the only caveat with this one, it shows the stats, but it looks quite large when you walk in there, and when you look at that, because you think, oh, look at how many people are looking at my website. But this is not just your website, this is the entire network. So you can go in there and individualize it for your own website, but you have to create yourself a Google Analytics account. And the easy way to do that is through, you go down here where it says Insights. I believe it's in Settings. And down here, connect Monster Insights. So once you created your Google Analytics account, then you would connect it by going in through there. And setting up your Google Analytics account is, there's a step of how to do that on Google. Here's a link to it. I can actually put that in the chat. So there, everyone. So that's a good way to get started. Help you figure out how to do that. Main navigation bar is one thing I want to talk about. I do see a lot of sites that have way too many links on their main navigation bar, essentially because they haven't set up their menu. So under Appearance, then Menus, you will see the structure for that. So in this one, this is for, again, your PC website. And there is a website that's, or the menu has been created called Menu 1. You just start by creating a new menu, give it a title, and shrink something here. Then save the menu, and then once you have that initiated, you can start clicking from all the different pages that you have. You can add pages, you can add posts if you have any, or you can create custom links. And once you create what you want, you just click on Add to Menu, and then it gets populated in here. To create drop-downs, these are like the high levels of welcome, your first visit, who we are, but anything that's sort of indented is the drop-down with underneath, for example, the who we are. And that's all there really is to it. And it's important that you do click at the bottom of the primary menu, so it'll show on. If that's not collected or selected, it won't show up. And then of course you have to save the menu for it to go forward. Let's jump to adding photos. So let's take a look at the what to expect page, and I'll throw a photo in there. So let me just go into edit mode. And if I want to put a photo right at the beginning and right align it, it's important to click your mouse where you want the photo to show up, because that's where it's going to get inserted. Click on Add Media, and you either select something from your media library, or you can click on Upload Files, and by either dragging from your file manager right onto the screen, or clicking the Select Files button and going through to your file manager that way. You can also drag and drop right onto the media library, and it'll also get uploaded. And there's a limit of 50 megabytes for file size, but you wouldn't want a 50 megabyte image on your website, because that would be too hard for people to actually load your web page. So the smaller and most optimized it is, the better. Let me just choose an image here, not too crazy big. So I'll choose that one. It's 800 by 534 pixels, which is kind of big. We'll choose a different size, but it's important when you're doing this, add alt text, which is alternative text, because this is what's taken a look at by screen readers. For example, someone who's blind and can't see the scene, and so it's good for accessibility. I can also add a title. Title is, if you hover your mouse over top of the image, the text will show up. And you can also add captions, which will show up below the image. So we scroll down, here's where you choose your alignment. So we're going to right align it, as I mentioned. And you can have it linked to something. So if you click on the image, it'll go somewhere else. So you can use a custom URL and have it jump somewhere else into your website or externally. Or just have nothing at all, so it has no click on it. And then we're going to choose your size. We'll use medium as a good size for the right-hand side. And you can see the code just got pushed in there. I should say that you are seeing code, because I sort of work in the code most of the time. Usually you'll have two tabs on the right-hand side, one called visual, one called text. I'm essentially in the text by default. But if you have visual, then you'll see what it looks like. So to see what this looks like, I'll just click on Preview Changes, which will open up a new window, and we'll see the result. So, and there it is, the image of the people I just put in, and is right aligned. So it's pretty simple to do, but there are those key things to remember, such as where you click your mouse is where your image is going to get inserted, and don't forget to add the alternative tag to your image. So like, as I mentioned, that alternative tag, so for example, if this image couldn't load, so even if it's not that you're blind, you can't see it, but if this image wouldn't load for whatever reason, that alternative text would actually show up written there to let you know, why is this sort of square there, why is what's supposed to be there, then you will know what it is. And it won't be like a file name from your camera like DSC1234, which means nothing to people. And let's jump back to the back end. Sermons is something a lot of people are interested in. So under Sermons Pro, all you have to do to create a new, add a sermon is just go down here, click Add New. And it's just like creating a post or a page. You give it a title and scroll down. And if you have like an audio sermon, you scroll down to the sermon files, put in your location of your MP3. So you would click on there. It would take you to the same sort of loader. You upload the file, same way. You can either drag it on or use the select files to get there. And the file link will show up in there. I mean, that's the very bare minimum you want to do. If you don't have audio files, you can add even a video code, like if you have a YouTube account. And you can even add just text in there. And I believe you can also add in a PDF somewhere. Yeah, I think just sermon notes, I think it is. And even a bulletin. There's so many things you can do with this in regards to like putting in who's the preaching if you have more than one preacher at your church, the book series, topics, Bible books, all that stuff can be added in. And each one of these items get added over on the left-hand side. As you can see down here under the Sermons Pro, here's your preachers, your series, your topics, your books. So you create these first before you start to create your sermon, and then these options will show up here, or you can just click in here, type one, add, and it'll get added automatically. Let me see, one other thing I might add as well. I'm going to jump back over to the page that we were looking at before we add that photo. Okay, yeah, so this particular theme has templates. So under the page attributes, you can choose a different theme. So this one has a sidebar template, which is how that sidebar shows up on the left-hand side. And there's also a showcase template, which I think shows up, is the one that shows the sidebar on the opposite side. And if you are in a post, so there is no post here yet, so we'll add one. What I'm looking to do is to talk about categories. If you are doing a lot of posts, like there's a lot of activities in your church and you want to give posts of what has happened or is about to happen, it's good to tag them with categories. So right now, the default in only categories uncategorized, which is not very informational for people trying to find information about your posts. This all ties into search engine optimization as well. As Google indexes your website, it'll pick up these things such as categories. So if it just says uncategorized, that's not very helpful. So create posts that are relevant. So if you have, I don't know, certain events like meetings in the church, board meetings or whatever, you can have a category for board meeting and then have your post in relation to that. Okay, so I'm not sure, Barb, is there anything else you want me to talk about in regards to the back end of the website?
No, that's great, James. Maybe if you wouldn't mind saying just a couple words on SEO, that might be helpful to people.
Yes, yeah, that is also very important. So some of the key things people wonder, like, how come my website is not showing up top of the list of Google? Some of the key things you need to do is make sure you have content and relevant content to each one of the pages that makes sense. Give it a good title. Google looks, the first thing they look at for each page is the title. And then once you're in the content, they're going to look at all the header tags. So the title is the H1 tag. The header is the first header, which would be like an H2 header. It's the next thing that it looks at, and then H3 and H4, so on and so forth. Whatever the title is of your page or post. Let me just go back to that page so you can see. Real clearly what I'm talking about here. Okay, yeah, so here this page is called What to Expect. So in that first sentence that you see down here, that has to be a good explanation as to what this page is really about, because that's what Google is going to pick up in the meta information. When you see all the things listed on Google's indexing, that's what's going to be show up. And it's good to, if you can, also include the title within that first sentence, because that also helps with the SEO optimization. Creating links back to your website. So if you have a Facebook page, Instagram, Twitter, whatever, and you have an event or something happening in your church, post it on your Facebook page and then have a link back to your website. Those are great ways to help boost your search engine optimization. And like I said, with Google, it's not, once you build your website and you see you put a lot of great content in it, it's not going to happen overnight necessarily, but it'll take a little bit of time for Google to index your website, and then slowly but surely your website will start to push its way up to the top. That's sort of the basics of your SEO optimization. There's a lot, greater depth you can get into, but that's a good place to start.
Thanks, James. That's great. Okay, why don't we open it up for some questions now? Please keep in mind that you're probably got yourself on mute, so you'll have to unmute yourself before you ask a question, or you can also ask it in the chat feature. So if anybody has any questions, you can just unmute yourself or ask through the chat. I'm going to put the link to the Your Church website in the chat as well. We're putting you on the spot for questions, but if you think of anything later, by all means, don't hesitate to contact myself or James at another time by email, or even if you give us a call, we check our voicemails from home. Yeah, thanks, William. Which is more important to focus on, Facebook or website? That's a great question. And I would say that it really is going to depend on where you feel the more focus should be on. Social media is very different than a website. I am a big believer that a website is sort of the foundation, and your social media stuff builds and ties in with that website. So I really feel strongly that you should have at least a basic but strong website to fall back on, that to link back, because you want your social media posts to come back to that. While social media is a chance to like have conversations and all, that's great, link back to the content on your site, to the sermons, to the information, to the contact page. But that, even if it's a basic site, it doesn't have to be splashy, it doesn't have to have a lot of bells and whistles on it, but a basic website I feel is really important to have. But then to build on that with your social media, such as Facebook, that would be the next step in my mind. But you may have, it may be slightly different if your focus is just more on that engagement factor. But even then, I cringe thinking that you wouldn't have a strong website to tie in with that. So I personally feel that the website really does need some love and attention before you start building up on your social media. Okay, good question from Anna on website appearance on phones and tablets. James, do you maybe want to jump in on that about responsive theme?
Absolutely, yeah. So all of the themes that we have on the PCC web are responsive, which means they will size appropriately to mobile devices, whether it's a tablet or a phone. Each one will appear in its own unique way. Sometimes the menu will show up in like 3 little bars that you click on and expands. Some of them will show the drop downs as a separate click, some do not. So you really have to kind of take a look at the different themes that are available and see which one you like the best with regards to your website and how it looks on mobile.
Nowadays, most themes, like even if you're not using PCC web, most themes I'm sure are responsive, but the best way is just test it out as much as you can. Tablets, phones, different sizes, monitors, as much as you can test, the better it is, I think. Okay, yeah, William, the member creating, oh yes, okay. So those are, you know, QR codes, QWERTY codes, they're a little old school. I don't see those too much anymore, but you can certainly do them. Most mobile phones have apps that are even just using the photo feature will jump to the website. That's just a little extra that you can do. That's kind of cute. It's a little retro in a way now, I think. But yeah, there's different apps to create them if you want to do them yourself too. Any other questions or just even comments about different websites that you've seen that worked well or didn't work well? Anything you want to talk about while we have a few minutes together? Okay, I'll leave it at that, hoping nobody's madly typing to get a question in there. Thank you everyone for taking part. I hope this has been helpful to you and I hope you've learned a few things. And like I said, either myself or James would be happy to answer any of your questions. We do work with congregations on a one-to-one basis as we're able to. You know, there's the 4 of us in the department, so doing this work. So it's, you know, we don't always have a ton of time to do it, but as much as we can, we would be glad to help you. And even just if you want to bounce off some ideas or have us check out your site and provide some feedback, we would be glad to do that. And yeah, don't hesitate to reach out and we'll try and offer some more of these workshops in the future if you're looking for more information on websites and social media. Thanks so much, everyone.